afternoon from Hong Kong. Um, Actually, it's Happy Valentine's Day as well. But it is Valentine's Day afternoon here in Hong Kong, and May's off working today. She's a registered nurse, so she's got to work today. So while she's out working, I've got some time to condition the batteries that I live off of here on the boat. So I figured this would be kind of a good time to go and talk about charging batteries. I watch on YouTube, and I see a lot of comments on videos where they go and they say, you got to be at this voltage, and you have to be all at this and that. So I figured I'd like to share some of my experience and your basic textbook stuff. I'm not going to go into detail about temperature, differences and stuff like that. We'll just kind of go over some things about how to keep your batteries conditioned and just normal charging status using your solar panels, solar charge controllers, and even AC powered chargers. And I think it'd be kind of fun. So right now, my battery bank is at 29.5 according to my TriStar, my Morningstar TS60 MPPT controller. The temperature of my batteries are at 20C. I've got 12.5 amps coming in, and that's 368 watts. Now there's not a lot of sunshine right now, but I am in absorb. I've turned my inverter off, and so it's just me on the boat. I have my little chargers here for the iPad and the iPhone and that. So it's a really good time to just condition my batteries. So as you can see, of the 12.4 amps that are coming in, and I've got 11.7 amps that's actually going into my battery bank. And again, I'm at 100% state of charge. Here, this temperature sensor is on a different terminal, negative terminal, so it's stating 19C while this is stating at 20C. So, not sure how that works, but anyway, if we come to my historical data, again, the maximum depth of discharge I've ever had is 320 amp hours. And I've got 10 cycles where I've gone below 50% state of charge, and that's been like during some typhoons. And I've never had a full discharge where I've just drained my batteries. And I've consumed 17,000, or I've consumed 17,392.9 amp hours since the last time I've synced my batteries with this battery monitor. So that's totally different because you see over here, since I've had my solar panels active, since this charge controller has been going, I've actually made 42,187 amp hours in that. So there are different stages of charging, and you've got a bulk, or as like on this TriStar monitor, it would read MPPT. That's the bulk stage of charging. Now, because I have a 24 volt battery bank, you have bulk starts out, so it keeps going, and it just takes whatever power it can get until your battery bank gets up to an absorb voltage. Now, at a 24 volt bank, I'm using a lead acid bank, and I'll get into more detail about this after we go over this, but to get to an absorb voltage where we're absorbing everything, I've got mine set at 29.2 volts, so we kind of get up to 29.5, 29.2. This is this absorb stage, and it goes on. I've got it set for an hour and a half if I can get that, and then once it goes from this absorb, the second stage, absorb, it would go down to a float voltage, which would be about 27 volts, like 13.5 would be on a 12-volt bank. And so then you've got a fourth stage of charging batteries, which is called the equalize, and that just really gets up to a higher voltage. And we'll get into more detail on that. But as you can see, I don't have a lot of power coming in. It's kind of bright out. But it was really, really foggy. It's been foggy because it's warming up and that. But I don't have full sunshine. The skies are gray and that. And I've got not a lot of power coming in. But, you know, at 24 volts, I've got, 11, 12 amps coming in, and which is nice. But these stages of charging, like my battery bank right now is, again, it's at 100% state of charge. I usually consume about 50 amp hours every evening. And the refrigerator, I kind of turn it off at night. Refrigerator doesn't need to be running because the door doesn't open. During the day, yes, it does. So we have the fridge on. So, and everything charges back up during the day. But these three stages of charging. Now, the thing about with my boat and how I live off the grid is that I've got my house bank, which is one bank, and then I've got two engines in this vessel. So I've got a port and a starboard engine, and they all use 24-volt batteries to start. So I also use start batteries. These are not deep cycle batteries, but I still follow the same bulk, absorb, and float, and I even equalize them. And they're start batteries, the same as you would have in your car. But the batteries that I live on, are totally different. They're a deep cycle. So you truly want to have these 3 to 4 stages of charging to keep your batteries healthy and lasting for a long time. Now, for 15 years, I've been working with batteries. I am no expert. I'm not a engineer from the Trojan battery company or anything, but I'm just speaking from my experience. So what we'll do now is we'll kind of go over, and if I could show you the textbook type stuff of charging the batteries, and you just kind of go over what I've learned and what we see about these stages of charging, and to kind of follow this to keep healthier batteries. And that's the whole thing. Healthy batteries, living off grid, you're content, and that's what we want to do. So, all right, so let's go over to the computer, and we'll talk in more detail about that. Talk to you soon. All right, here we are at the computer, and now I'll kind of go over some details on how I've been charging. Now I use the Morningstar, MPPT. It's the TS60. It's a 60 amp charger because I've got 1,200 watts of solar in that right now, and I've got enough room to add one more 300 watt panel. So I use this solar charge controller. And so when it comes to the charging that this solar charge controller, how it performs is, as you can see, you've got your nighttime. Of course you have night. So in the morning, when the sun comes up and starts putting sunshine on my solar panels, it goes from the current voltage that my battery bank is at, and it goes right into bulk charge, which on my remote monitor it reads MPPT. So it's going, and it just comes up, and it comes to an absorption voltage, and then it maintains that, and it can go up to like 2.5 hours if that's possible, and then once that voltage goes for that length of time, then it will drop down to a float voltage. So there's your basic 3 stages of charging: bulk, absorb, and float. And that's what keeps your batteries in a very healthy state. But again, from time to time, you need to equalize your cells. And when you do that, for me, what I normally do is like about every 60 days to every 90 days, every 3 months. But usually it's been on 60 days. I'll take my hydrometer down and I'll check out each cell
and that because I use USA brand batteries. It's the US 2200 XC2 batteries, and they're a 6-volt battery, and they've got one, two, three cells. So they want to be maintained above 2 volts each, of course, to make it a 6-volt battery. And that so based on my batteries, which if you have an off-grid system, I mean the batteries are the heart of your system, and that so charging and maintaining a good charge from the first minute you put your batteries in, you want them to be healthy and up to par, and that so the batteries, again, the 6-volt batteries that I use are a flooded. They're a flooded lead acid cell. So on my charge controller, I've got a lot of different settings, and what I've got is I'm on a battery type 5, which is flooded. Now, there on this Morningstar that I use, you've got 2 different flooded type settings. So you got battery type 5 and battery type 6. They're both flooded, and it's based on the voltages. Now, as you can see, it's like this is stating at a 12-volt bank, and that so everything here you need to times 2 for a 24-volt bank, and that's what I do. So at 29.2 volts is when I hit the absorb stage, and then it should go from 120 minutes. Plus, we'll go into that. I'll show you how the controller works. But that is my absorb. And so once I go into the absorb, which is at 29.2, and it does go up to, as you saw previously, that it was at 29.5. And the charge controller maintains it at pretty much no higher than 29.6, and that. And then it would go down to 27 volts for my float voltage, and that's how we have it. So if we go down, it says here's your battery type, and that again the 2 different types. Like I give you an example. If you watch other off-grid type channels here on YouTube, like there's Kirk, who's on, it's 46 degrees north up in Canada. He's on the 46 parallel, thus the name of his channel. And he just got some really kick butt batteries, and it happened to be wintertime. So he went and he had to equalize them, and which we'll get into equalizing. So he's got a very good it's not a hydrometer. It's an electronic device that he uses to check each cell. So when he put his bank together, he wanted to get things equalized, but he's up where it's really, really, really cold, and it's wintertime to balance out his cells, and that, he put a lot of hard work into it, and that's what you have to do when you first get your system going. And I really applaud these guys. It's a Prepper Nurse 1. I've been watching what he's been doing. He's upgrading his system to 24 volts. And now he's using the L16 batteries and the float voltage. Let me scroll down. The absorb voltage, and that for him is 30.8 volts for his 24 volt system. So he's got to set his controller so that the absorb stage is 30.8 volts, and then it'll go down to a float voltage. So I mean, but there's a lot of preparation. You just don't go and grab some batteries, put them together, connect your charge controller, and just let it go. And this is part of your conditioning of your batteries. So if we go into detail about what is the absorb stage, it's this stage limits the input current so that the absorption voltage is maintained. As the battery becomes more charged, the charging current continues to taper down until the battery is fully charged. And so again, float is when the battery is fully charged, the charging voltage will be reduced to a float or equalized state. And so again, let's kind of have a review. Bulk. The bulk, in bulk charging stage, the battery is not at 100% state of charge. So if you're at nighttime, sun comes out, and then it starts to go up, and that, um, where am I at here? Okay, the battery voltage has not been charged to the absorption voltage set point. Now that's it, it's the set point. The controller will deliver 100% of the available solar power to recharge the battery. And then once it gets up to that absorb voltage, so when the battery has recharged to the absorb voltage set point, a constant voltage regulation is used to maintain the battery voltage at the absorb set point. And it comes down here, so again, read the manual of your charge controller, because here on the Morningstar, a battery must remain in the absorption charging stage for a cumulative 120 to 150 minutes, depending on the battery type, before transition to the float stage will occur. However, absorption time will be extended by 30 minutes if the battery discharges below the 12.5 or 26 volts or 25 volts on a 24 volt system. So these are really important. Now, if we get into our float stage, it kind of maintains things at the 27 volts for me, and I'm very, very happy. And if it drops down, then we'll go back into another stage. And then equalizing, like again, Kirk up there at 46 degrees north. Now he had to do a lot in very, very cold weather, and that to get his batteries, all the cells equalized in very, very cold weather. And again, he had to go, at that temperature where he was, would freeze human flesh immediately, but he had to go up to like 32 volts and that. And your inverter, your other equipment, you've got to take those things offline. I really applaud Kirk for what he did, to prepare his batteries. And again, when Prepper Nurse that I've been watching gets those L16s in, and that he's going to have to do the same thing, and he'll probably equalize them. But follow your battery manufacturer's recommendations, and just take all the precautions to get things set. And that. So let's go over to our next here. When it comes to charging, I've seen other channels. There are some guys that are using automobile chargers for deep cycle batteries, and like here's one that I see very commonly used. This one from Harbor Freight, it's a 10-250, and basically what that means here is it delivers 2 to 10 amps, charging a constant rate. Plus, it has a 50 amp engine start. Now, these are for automobile batteries. These are not for deep cycle batteries. Another one that I've seen commonly used is these ones that they get from, like, their friend's a mechanic. They do automobile work, and these are big things. They got like this 200 amp charger, but again, it doesn't have the 3 stages of charging. So what it is it gets you the start battery, the auto start battery, up to 13.5, 13.8 volts, just enough to get the engine started, because there's an alternator. That alternator will go and it will maintain the 13.8, and that you don't need this AC charger anymore. But these are just not intended for deep cycle batteries, and this is such a commonly used thing that I see on a lot of YouTube channels. And it is so important to, if you're going to use an AC charger, use a proper 2 to 4 stage battery charger. I highly recommend a minimum of 3. If it doesn't have equalize, make sure it has your bulk, absorb, and a float voltage. And that, like, for example, I use Xantrex for my AC chargers. Xantrex, that's Xantrex, Xantrex. And now for me, because my system, I'm on a boat, so I've got 3 battery banks, And as you can see here, let me kind of scroll this up a little bit so you can see it. So here's our battery charger that's up here. But I've got three banks. I've got bank 1, bank 2, and bank 3. Now again, they are all isolated. So bank number 1 is my house bank. Now that is what it's 446 amp hour battery bank. That's what I live on to power my inverter, to power my inside lights, and that for in the V-berth here and other lighting and that. So that's bank number 1. And then again, that's 24 volts. But I have bank 2 and bank 3, port side engine, starboard side engine. Now these are only 120 amp hour battery banks, but these are starter batteries. These are start batteries, but I still follow the same charging, the absorb or the bulk absorb and float voltage, and it just keeps it so we do not build up that sulfur, so they do not sulfate, and the batteries will last a long time. So although we have the same common ground, everything is bonded the same. I've got AC that comes in to my AC charger, and I've got three outputs. So although it's a 60 amp charger, it will go and it will deliver 20 amps per hour to each bank until it reaches its proper voltage. So there's a computer or whatever, there's a sensor. It's a smart charger, and it will charge three different battery banks. So the house bank is always, if we've got a typhoon, we've just had crappy weather for a month or whatever, because I have not used this AC charger since August, and now here we are in February. And that, but these two banks are going to, I start my engines once a week, so it's just that starting, but I've got alternators on both of them, so once the engine starts up, it'll start charging up each bank, so the port engine and the starboard engine will charge up these batteries as well. So then once voltage is coming in on that, my battery charger senses, hey, we don't need to send that much more voltage here, or voltage and current, mainly current, charging current, and let's send it all to the house bank so I can get 60 amps per hour to that. And that's how that works. Now on my charger, I'm using the XC2524 and this one is going to go, and it states that, again, we have to multiply by 2 for a 24 volt, and I'm using flooded, so again, that's 28.8 volts is at 25C is what it's going to put out at the absorb voltage. And in the float voltage, it's going to be at 27 volts even is my float voltage. And so an equalize, I have turned off the equalize feature on my battery charger, but it's really important if you do have an AC charger to make sure it has these stages of charging. And again, for me, my system is a bit more complex because I've got three different battery banks. And that although bank 2 and bank 3, port and starboard engines, are identical, they are not identical to bank 1, which is the deep cycle bank. But the three stages of charging is so important. And although I do have automobile banks, I do not use these type of chargers. I do not use automobile. I call it a booster charger, but it is not designed to condition any battery bank. It is just designed to get the voltage up enough and enough current in that battery bank to start your engine, and then the alternator takes over from there. And the alternator on an automobile, and even my diesel engines that I have here on the boat, and that my voltage regulator allows two-stage charging. It goes to an absorb voltage and to a float voltage. So it's not like a common, there are even Harbor Freight here. They have this DC generator. It's your standard gasoline, two-cycle engine, and it just powers an alternator. but that alternator is only putting out like 13.8 volts at a lower current, at a lower amperage, and that. So it's not designed to do what you need for an off-grid deep cycle system. So I guess I wanted to kind of go into more detail about, where is it at? Go into more detail about the different stages of charging your battery and doing it right the first time. And again, I've two thumbs up. You see, two thumbs up for that Kirk up there on 46 degrees north. You know, doing it right the first time, conditioning his batteries. Prepper Nurse One that I see is, I'm really excited to see what he's doing with that those L16s, because L16s are nice batteries. They're big and they do a lot and they hold their charge. But again, you got to treat them right. You got to use the proper stages of charging. You can't just go and use an automobile charger to do it. And so today I've been going and conditioning my batteries. I've had a few cells. I had to top off with some water, but we're in the absorb stage and we're still going and we're going strong. So all you guys that are aspiring off-gridders, the batteries are the heart of your system. You know, condition your batteries. Don't just hook them up and say, okay, that's it. Know how to charge them. It's so important to know how to charge your batteries. And bulk, absorb, and float, very, very important. And, you know, go into the equalized stage, you know, go into detail about that to desulfate your batteries. So, from Alan and May here in Hong Kong, wishing everyone a very, very wonderful, loving, and happy Valentine's Day. So, be good, be safe, and always be well. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.